To me, any time of year is a good time to read a good horror story because I like to freak myself out. Hi guys, it's April and I'm going to do this book review the same way I do all of my other book reviews. I'm going to have the non-spoiler section up front and the spoiled filled section afterwards in case you don't want to spoil yourself, but feel free to stick around for however long you want. I will not judge you. This is a judgment-free zone. So I did receive a copy of the Redwood Asylum, a paranormal horror by L.A. Detwiler for a free and honest review, but that in no way has swayed my opinion on this book. I just thought that you should know that fact going into this review. Now, the Redwood Asylum is the story of Jessica, who is a nurse caretaker who is running from something that has happened and decides to take a job at the asylum. It is modern day, but somehow this asylum seems to have slipped through the cracks and still practices some very archaic treatments, and the facility itself feels very much like it's still in that very gothic asylum time frame. As soon as Jessica starts her job, the paranormal activity starts to happen. Most of the caretakers of the facility are very familiar with certain ghosts within the facility, but for some reason, certain entities, certain beings, certain presences become more active around Jessica. Jessica initially starts to notice a lot of this activity centered around one of the patients in 5B. This leads her down an investigation around the patient and the asylum itself. This story is very short. It's only about 160 so odd pages, so it reads very quickly. One of the issues I have is because it reads so quickly, it has about 34 chapters. So for a book that's only about 160 pages, this means each chapter is only about 4 or 5 pages long, which means things are turning over very, 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 very quickly. As soon as you get one event, it seems to just jump to the next. So this is written almost as if you're watching a horror movie. It has some of those kind of vibes, but it makes it so that you don't really get a good feel for the atmosphere. It doesn't build the tension. It doesn't give you that creepy, ominous feel because it never gives you a chance to really start to develop that. So there are some very gruesome and gory scenes within this story, but because it never really gave you a chance to develop any of that, to build any of that up, it wasn't really that creepy or ominous. It missed some of those horror spots. Now, while the story was interesting and following Jessica and discovering everything that was going on and even hints of her own background and things that she has been through, it wasn't anything new. It felt like something I have seen or read before. All of the twists and turns were fairly obvious. I think just because it is so short and because of the way the story was built up, it didn't have any uniqueness. And I really, really wanted this in the story. There are a couple of different perspectives that happened throughout this story. You definitely have Jessica's perspective going on, but then you have also this mysterious info dumping chapters where you don't necessarily know where the perspective is coming from. So you can kind of start to speculate what is going on, which leads to the possibility of there being more set in the asylum, which is fun. And I'd probably read it just so I can find out what that information is because I am intrigued by the setting. I just feel like this book could have been such a real goosebump, chilling story, and it never really got there, and that's what I wanted from it. So do I recommend it? I mean, I there is so much possibility in this author. I just want a little more from them. Otherwise, this is the point in the story in which I'm going to go into more of the spoilery section. So if you don't want to spoil yourself, this is the point in which you leave. If you do decide to read this book, let me know down below. I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, I'm just going to start to say a whole bunch of words because that's why I turned on the camera. So I did mention that a lot of this plot was very typical of this genre, and it didn't necessarily twist it into something new. From the very beginning, you knew that Jessica was running from something very horrific that she did. And as soon as you saw the girl in the yellow dress and the way she reacted and the way that 5B didn't react, you knew it was her ghost, even from the very beginning. And the fact that they held off on that information till the very end, I don't know if that was necessary, because they didn't build up the tension with that in the right way. So it was kind of like, well, okay, I guess we're just going to get all of the information dumped on us on the very end. And the fact that for whatever reason, she couldn't piece together a lot of the stuff that was going on, even though it wasn't that secretive. I think it was fairly obvious what a lot of the stuff was meaning and saying. And maybe that's me coming at it as a reader. But I felt like there was zero tension in any of this story. The fact that the girl was a girl that Jessica had killed, or the fact that all of these children were actually from 5B and his murderous ways. The ghosts were meant to be gruesome and gory because of their deaths, buried and drowned and set on fire, that kind of things, run over by a car. And yes, their descriptions were kind of that way, and our character reacted by screaming and running, but I was just missing that connection to the very uncomfortableness of what this story could be. And that's what I like about horror, is how uncomfortable it makes you, how it makes you cringe and gasp and be very thankful for how sunny your life is. And I was kind of just about the whole story, because I never got any of those connections. None of that tension was ever built. None of that suspense was there. And I think that's what this story really, really needed, is some of that suspense rather than just this descriptive gore. Because there was a lot of telling and not necessarily a lot of showing. And I think that's probably where things broke down. So you had everything happening very quickly, where Jessica comes to the asylum, and then instantly she automatically knows that something's wrong. We never got the build up to the reveal that this place was haunted. And then immediately she's breaking in and hacking into files. So you never get that tension of, well, should I do it today? Maybe right now. Maybe nobody's looking. It was just kind of like, oh, this is convenient. Let me go do it. And then the character would say, I had a sense that something was there, that there was a presence or someone was watching me, but it never built up to the reveal of what that thing was. So you never got the something wasn't right, something was misplaced, things were moving. The little things that you usually get in horror of, well, I don't think I put that there, or there's an unidentifiable noise coming from some direction. Things got a little chilly. There was goosebumps. Something wasn't right. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. I turned, nothing was there, but there was breathing on the back of my neck, kind of. You know, the slow build, that slow burn into all of a sudden, boo. we just didn't get that in the story, and I wanted it. I'm gonna end my small mini rant here, because I think you guys are getting the picture of what I'm talking about in this book. Tell me down below what your thoughts are on this kind of suspense, this kind of build, this story, anything in general. And of course, if you want to see more content like this, subscribe down below, hit that bell, get all of those notifications, and I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.